Good evening, friends of the Risen King. Happy Lent. My name is Enoch. Welcome to another episode of Get to Know. If y'all don't know, I'm fresh out my new album, Deus Vult. I dropped 2 albums this year. I'm so happy and pleased to have with me here, who I'm excited to get to know, who some would say that, he melts our hearts like a popsicle on the 4th of July. Everybody, please welcome Mr. Bug Hall. Thank you, Bug, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Bug, I want to just get started. I just want to just get down to get to know you. I'm sorry, get to know you. Anybody here that wants to ask any questions, please do so. I'll highlight it and get Bug to answer. Please keep it respectable and charitable. We are Christians here. I just want to start. What decade were you born in, Bug?
I was born in the 80s.
In 1980s, the golden time, huh?
That's right.
It's wonderful.
The neon time.
So you're a Reagan baby, I would say.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Growing up, do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have 2 younger brothers and I have an older sister.
Okay, wonderful. And what state were born and grew up in?
The greatest state in the world, Texas.
Texas, wonderful. Okay, yeah, that's one of the best states we have here. Looking back at your early age, what would you say were some of your fondest memories growing up? Like, were you an outdoors guy? Did you play outside, sports?
Yeah, we were never inside. When I'm an 80s kid, right? So we were basically kicked out of the house first thing in the morning, and we were told to come back right before sunset. My dad's rule was this: as long as the sun was still visible just above the horizon. Now, if that sun dropped below the horizon, I was in trouble, but I had to be home right then. So we were out all day. We ran in the woods. We built tree houses, BB gun wars. How none of us lost an eye, I don't know. But, we just ran around and got dirty, got bruises and cuts,
Wow. You're doing what boys were supposed to do at the time,
Yep.
right? Absolutely.
Yep.
What would you say growing up was like your go-to Saturday morning cartoon or like your favorite cartoons growing up?
Oh, man. Saturday morning cartoon. You know what? I liked, I liked Darkwing Duck. I liked Darkwing Duck. I liked that kind of dark, And the funny thing is when I first saw the commercial for it, I was like, I have to watch that. And I kept missing it because it was new, which meant it was like the first up in the run,
Sure. Yeah.
And so I kept missing it. But I liked that one. Gummy Bears was one I watched a lot. Gummy bears bouncing here and there and everywhere. Yeah, those were good ones.
Those were good. Yeah. Did you enjoy like Ninja Turtles or He-Man, stuff like that too?
Oh yeah. I had all the He-Man toys.
Yeah.
Ninja Turtles were huge for me, man. Like, I was still young enough to where I went and saw the first Ninja Turtle movie when it came out in theaters. I think it was like the second movie I ever saw in theaters, and I just lost my mind, right?
Wow.
I loved the Ninja Turtles.
Wow, wonderful. And as far as like breakfast, like what was your favorite breakfast growing up as a kid? Like, mom made this, you were excited.
We were cereal kids, man. We were cereal kids. Oh yeah. It was like a grand month if we were able to pick out the cereal box at the store. Like, that was like a huge thing. It was very rare, but every once in a while, my mom would be like, "Okay, you each get to pick a cereal." No, actually, I take it back. We would usually have to agree on one and pick one.
Wow.
Me and my sister, and then her rule, because we'd always fight over the toy in the cereal box, right? Which back in those days, you remember, you pour it out and the toy would just be like clunk.
That's right.
Just fall out, no packaging, just a open toy in there.
It's a plastic toy.
And she got tired of the fighting, so she was like, the rule is whoever's cereal that toy plunks into, that's who gets that toy. Like, I don't want to be more arguing over whose toy it is.
That's fair.
So I would cheat. I'd get up real early, and I would sip that toy up to the top. I'd reach down in there, and then that wood just fell out.
Oh. Well, yeah. Smart, very smart. What was your favorite cereal growing up? Did you have one?
Well, that's a tough one. I liked Cookie Crisps. Yeah, Cookie Crisp. What else? I mean, basically anything that was just packed full of sugar. You know, Kicks. I
Yeah,
hated
yeah,
Kicks. I didn't understand Kicks. Everyone was like
yeah.
Kicks.
Same here.
I, yeah, I didn't get that one.
Remember Golden Grams? That was my favorite. One of my
Of
favorites.
course, Golden Grams
Yeah,
were the best, man. I
those were
actually
good.
liked them soggy. I was all about it. I
Yeah,
had to have my cereal just like drenched in milk, just drowning in milk.
sure.
And
Yeah, same
yeah, I
here.
liked them once they got soggy. I was the weird one about that.
No, I'm with you there. Yeah, I enjoy mine soggy too. I like it's a texture thing, I guess. I guess you could
Yeah,
say, right? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I hear you. So to the people who don't know, I don't think most moderns don't know. Bug Hall started acting at a very young age, and for those who don't know, you were actually the lead actor, child actor for the Little Rascals. You were
yep,
Alfalfa,
yep.
right? Yeah, so you are Alfalfa himself. Right? It's incredible, and you are, like you said, you are nostalgia to a lot of people, especially to myself, because I love that movie growing up. That was a great movie.
Yeah,
So,
it is. It's a fantastic movie.
and not only that, but like looking back now, you nailed that part. Like, just it was flawless. Looking back
Yeah.
at it now, and as an adult, think about like, wow, like you nailed that part perfectly. Um, so, what got you into acting as a young child? What was the one thing that was it your parents? Was it yourself that really wanted to
Well, it
seek
was
that
that. It was
profession?
that movie.
Hmm.
So long story short, my mom ran a 24-hour daycare out of our house, right?
Wow. Okay.
And one of the things we had a couple things that we were allowed to watch, and the old Our Gang, the old Little Rascals, was one of the things we watched all the time.
Mm.
And my sister was in this dance studio, like a clogging class, and they had the flyers up on the wall there. And Spielberg was going all over the country casting kids for the movie because he wanted non-actors. He was very strict about that. He wanted people that
Really?
had no experience acting. That was kind of the charm of the original Our Gangs, that they were all just like regular kids off the street. So Spielberg was smart enough to sort of recreate that. And yeah, a bunch of kids from the dance studio were going. I wanted to go.
Yeah.
Everyone always kind of told me I looked like alfalfa, so I just I sat. I had a rat's tail, and I had blonde hair when I was a kid. So put black mousse in my hair, turned it black, cut the rat's tail off, and I don't know why I knew to do this, but I would just sit and watch them, and I would rewind it, and then I would mimic the voice, and then rewind it again, and just keep doing it over and over and over again.
Mm.
I went into the audition, and it was like a 4-hour wait because they saw like 10,000 kids for Alfalfa throughout the country.
Wow.
So, so the wait was like 4 hours. Well, I got in, and they were like, "Here, say this," and I said it, and I did the Alfalfa thing. I said it, and they're like, "Okay, thank you, goodbye." And even at 7, I just knew I was like, "Well, that's not a good sign," Like
Mm.
and so I just said, "Hey, can I sing you a song?" Which you can't tell a 7-year-old no. So they were like, "I guess." And so I launched into "She'll Be Coming Around the Mountain," which was an old Alfalfa bit, and nailed it. They were laughing, and that was it. Call back, call back, call back. And ended up in L.A. meeting Spielberg.
Wow, that's incredible. So so the auditions were they travel were they in Texas at the time when they did the auditions?
All the major cities. So they did Dallas, Chicago. They all the major cities around the country.
Wow, out of 12,000, you got that part, and all because you decided to put an extra effort to sing a song. Maybe that's what did it, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the original Art Gang, they were all real precocious, and I think the precociousness of kind of demanding that they let me sing a song was probably did it. At least got me to the next step. You know?
Sure, sure. Yeah, and then you also like nailed "You Are So Beautiful." You knocked it out of the park at them during the movie. That was a great part while you were singing to Delilah.
Yeah,
So going closer to middle school, were you still doing some acting as well at that time?
yeah.
Is it something you carried on maybe to your early years or?
I mean, I consistently worked as an actor just up until really probably about 6, 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago when I started my development company. Um,
Mm.
but I was, yeah, so pretty much all through that time. And, I did a lot of, after a bunch of kids stuff, I did 15 or so kids things.
Mm,
And then I took the shift intentionally. I wanted to do more independent things that were kind of highbrow or respectable, whatever. And then there was more money in TV, so I kind of shifted to TV,
mm.
and yeah, that was it. And then once I started my company, I that was too much work to also be taking acting roles and then also running development,
Sure.
producing stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And look, did you go through public middle school and high school, or did you go through private?
I did it all. So
Mm,
I did private schools and public schools
yeah.
all over the homeschool. When I was on
Wow.
set, we would have a set teacher, and I'd get my curriculum and then do it there. And so I was just all over the place. I tried to stick with public school as much as possible. My mom was real at the time. She wanted me as normalized as possible.
Mm.
So public school was, I think, good for that. It hadn't quite hit the decline that it's hit recently.
Sure, sure. Yeah, at the time, I think even myself going public school it wasn't as bad as it is now.
Yeah.
Looking back at were there any actors that as a kid that you saw? Hey, glory to God. Were there any actors that you saw growing up that you were absolutely starstruck? You're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm meeting you.
No, growing up in it, it was also normal to me. So
Sure.
there were lots of people that I really, really respected. Um, but it was just always you learn so quickly that everyone's normal. Everyone's just really, really normal.
Yeah.
Some of them are way cooler in person than you would expect. Some of them are way less cool in person than you would expect. But
Mm,
for the most part, everyone's just who they are. So, but yeah, I got to work with some phenomenal people over the years.
wonderful.
Leslie Nielsen and all kinds of great people. I was a big film fan even as a kid. I loved movies,
Sure.
so I was always more excited working with like directors that I really liked, John
Mm,
Landis and guys like that. I'd always get real excited about that.
right. I've heard actors say a lot. They say the hardest part of the process is memorizing your lines. Is that what you would say too?
No,
Really?
I that was the easy part for me.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
I could just kind of read a script and then just kind of have it down.
Wow.
Um, I also I wasn't real big on verbatim kind of working where you like always say the lines precisely. I was real big about kind of keeping it loose. So I'd do it different every take. Sometimes
Mm,
writers or directors or producers wouldn't like that and they would want me to stick like exactly to the script. Pretty rarely though. Like TV's kind of like that back in the old days. They didn't let you ad lib at all. So
mm.
you had to say every word precisely. Um, for me, I don't know. I think acting is just really, really easy. I think actors get just paid way too much, and But the funny thing is all the acting studio guys they show up on set and they've learned all these acting techniques. But I never went to acting classes. They learn all these acting techniques, but then the basic stuff they can't do. Like they can't hit a mark, and it's like if you can't hit a mark, you're not going to get hired. That's probably the most important part of the job is just landing on your mark
Really?
because it
Wow.
costs so
Okay.
much money to have to do extra takes. And if you're off your mark by an inch, the whole take is ruined, right? Like,
Sure. Sure.
the lighting's
Yeah.
all wrong because they light it precisely to where everyone's going to be standing. So you move
Mm.
your head like that, now you're hitting a shadow on someone's face, you know. So you got to just learn all that stuff. And since I grew up in it, that was really easy for me. It just came, you learn easy when you're a kid.
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
But then you get these like Juilliard students, 4 years at Juilliard, $80,000 down the tubes, and they can't hit a mark.
Oh man, that's a shame. That's really interesting to hear. Like, yeah, see, you don't. I don't know anything about this. You don't realize that the small, meticulous details that have to go into all of these scenes. Yeah,
Right.
that's really incredible. So, when you did go to public school, did you play any sports in school at all, or did you just
Yeah, I
stay
did
away from
football
that?
a little bit.
Did you? Okay,
Yeah, the funny thing is I was always gone working.
right.
So like I don't the longest stretch I think I ever had in the same school was like a couple months.
Mm,
And then I'd be off. for auditions in LA, or I'd have a job up in Toronto or wherever I was working. So I never actually got to play football, but I always somehow managed to make the team, hit two-a-days, go through all the training, and then, I'd usually be gone before we even start the season. So,
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, because
yeah.
you gotta go work and everything. Um, in high school, did you do a lot of dating, or you just kind of stay away from that?
Again, I was gone so much,
Sure, sure, yeah.
I was working so much, so it's not really. Yeah.
Okay. We'll move on to pop culture if you don't mind.
Let's do it.
Let's go to music. What genre of music? But before I start that, I mean, who would you say right now is your favorite Catholic rapper?
Well, Enoch, I don't know if you know Enoch, but if I'm going to listen to Catholic rap, that's what I'm listening to. We were just listening to it today, actually. We were
Is
listening to
that?
you. Yeah. We were up at the hospital with my
Yeah.
mother-in-law, and
Thank you.
we were jamming out, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I asked that question to it's a fun question. I did my mom did Tim Gordon. I asked that question to him too. He had a funny answer, but and I appreciate that. So go to music. What was your genre that was your go-to growing up that you liked? Was it different or
Um, I well, so yeah, I listened to a lot of that sort of Southern Delta rock stuff, Skinnerd and the Allman
ah
Brothers,
yeah.
all that kind of stuff was my jam for a long time. But that kind of led me. I was always this kind of like nerdy purist, so that stuff would always lead me further and further back, till I eventually ended up with like Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and all those guys. So I ended up a big blues fan and little jazz, little bit of jazz over there. The deep south stuff.
Right. No, that's good stuff. Do you ever play any instruments growing up or?
No, man, I begged. I wanted to learn the saxophone,
Oh,
and
Kenny
I
G.
begged every year, and it just never happened. So yeah, I bought a slide guitar once, and I couldn't learn how to tune it, and I eventually pawned it. So
Okay. Um, now you well, we'll get to that in a minute. What about TV shows growing up? Were there sitcoms that you like? Because the 80s and 90s, that was the golden era of sitcoms, right?
Wonder Years, man.
Wonder
The
Years,
Wonder
okay.
the Wonder Years. So there was a Nick at Night was running a Wonder Years special
Right.
for like 3 years straight. They would play I think 2 episodes in a row every night, and they worked through all I don't know 6 seasons, however many seasons there are, and it became like a religious obsession. I would make sure I was home with a new VHS, and I literally recorded every single Wonder Years episode over the span of whatever it was, a year, two, however long they aired them. So at one point, I had every Wonder Years episode on VHS.
Well, that's really incredible. Wonder Years is actually a really good show. Did you ever catch? Because that was Fred Savage, right? The Wonder Years.
Yeah,
And then did you ever watch Boy Meets World with
yeah,
Ben Savage? Yeah, you watched that
mhm.
too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
I knew both the Savages. A little bit throughout the years.
okay.
They'd work with a friend of mine or
Is that
whatever, and
right? Okay.
yeah, in the business here, there's always like one degree of separation from everybody.
Sure. Yeah. And how many degrees of separation are you from Kevin Bacon?
I'm uh, I'm 1 degree.
Is that
I'm
right?
1 degree, probably like 50 times over, but we never
Sure.
actually worked together.
Got it. Okay. Um, a friend of mine just recently told me about because I had watched the Wonder Years, but I never finished the whole thing. He said, "Go back and watch the last episode. It's a tearjerker." He said, and I
Yeah,
did. I went back. It really is. And that's something that's
there's
some
a
nostalgia for me too.
dude. There's a million tearjerker episodes. That show. Looking back, there's a lot of stuff that I wouldn't agree with now, but they did get to the heart of a lot of really core issues. This is an amazing episode. It's a father and son episode.
Mm,
Kevin Arnold hates his dad. Doesn't hate him, but he just doesn't understand the guy. His dad's just kind of quiet and grumpy, and he always played that sort of stern. He was a great dad character, this sort of stern, business guy.
Yeah.
factory business guy, whatever. And it's like bring your kid to work day.
Yeah.
And Kevin finally sees what his dad goes through all day, and just has like a completely different understanding of him. And they finally sort of share this bonding moment at the end, sitting out looking up at the stars at the end of the day. I mean, it's a beautiful show. Really, it's a beautiful show.
That's incredible because a lot of times, I guess later on there, they try to make every father figure a Dutz,
Yeah,
with some, and it's always good when they portray the father-son relationship.
yeah.
It's important. It's very important. And do
Well,
you,
and that was the cool thing with that show is he was always portrayed very dignified. You know,
mm,
the only time
mm,
he was a trope is when they were pushing kind of certain principles or sort of modern ideas. He was
yeah,
always the one against it, even though the show
sure.
was clearly kind of presenting the modern idea as the right idea.
Got it.
But aside from that, he was a very dignified character.
Okay. Um, where have you traveled across the world? What would you say is three places that you've been that you've absolutely loved?
My absolute favorite place that I've ever been to is Mount St. Michael in Normandy. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so that was one of the stops on our honeymoon, and it's just it was the most moving place I've ever been to. Just
Mm,
really magical. I wish we had stayed longer. I would have stolen a little time from other parts of the honeymoon and stayed there at least a few more days if I knew how amazing it was going to be. I
wow.
worked in Romania for 4 months, in Bucharest, and that became I had really fond memories of that place. I really loved it. What else? I worked in Australia. I don't have a whole lot of memories of Australia though. I was working too much. I didn't get around. Um, I was just downtown Sydney, so like my time off,
Mm.
I go to the arcade, which was something I could have done here in the States. I spent all my time at the arcade. I'm in Australia. Um, yeah, let's see what else. I loved Toronto growing up. I worked there a lot, and I really liked that city growing up. And New Orleans. New Orleans is probably my favorite city in the world.
Is that right? New Orleans.
Yeah,
Wow. I think um, Father Rip was just there. He was it was just the
yeah.
air, yeah, he was telling me. I think he was there yesterday. It was the airport.
I think he's there now. Actually,
He was
yeah, he
flying
just got
into.
there
Okay.
yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Wow, okay. Yeah. That guy's busy. um, so is there like your experience, what would you say was your all-time favorite movie that you were in?
That I was in.
Yeah,
Oh, that's tough. I don't know, man. I I never paid very much attention to
sure.
my career. I was never really very career oriented. I picked projects that I just kind of liked, and um, and then at certain points in my career, you just take the jobs you're given.
Sure, sure.
All different phases. I don't know. In my younger years, of all my younger year movies, there's a really unknown movie called The Stupids.
Mm,
Total flop at the box office. I think it made like $75,000. It was one of the biggest financial losses of the '90s, but it's a very funny
mm,
movie. It was written and directed by a man who is a comedy genius,
mm.
and he typically did adult comedies, and so there really wasn't a market at the time for like real, kids movies, and it kind of fell through the cracks. Very, very funny movie though. Tom Arnold at his best. Um, yeah,
What is it called? I gotta check that out.
called The Stupids.
Okay, I gotta check that out for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. If the movie flopped, I gotta go check it out because I like the movies that don't
Yeah,
do well. So
it's kind of a
that's
cult
one.
classic now. Like the people that like it
Yeah,
really like it.
sure, sure. So in the '90s, there were a lot of also great sitcoms. I don't know if you remember Fresh Prince and those. Um,
Sure, yeah,
Nickelodeon had some of those. You had Keenan and Kel, Nick at Night type of stuff as well. So that's
yeah,
that's my nostalgia. That's what I grew up with. Is that the same thing with yourself as well? I grew up watching that stuff.
yeah, yeah. I grew up watching a lot of that. I was a big movie guy, so I was
Mm,
always watching VHSs. I had a couple shows that I really liked um, during the day. The stuff that was on during the day. If I was home for
mm,
some reason, I'd watch TV. And then at night, I'd always throw on a movie at night. I'd always put on something Cool Hand Luke or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was a big movie buff.
So keeping in within pop culture, do you have a favorite movie of all time?
Oh, that's tough. So for most of my life, I would have said probably Cool Hand Luke. Cool Hand Luke was like right up
Yeah.
there with my favorite movies. Um, what else? Currently, I think my favorite movie might be A Hidden Life.
Oh yeah,
With,
yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Terrence Malick. I think that might be my favorite. I went through a period of time right after my conversion where I watched A Man for All Seasons like every day.
Yeah.
When I was in Romania, actually, when I was in
Is that right?
Romania, I didn't speak the language. I was working a lot, and so I'd get off set. I was working like 17 hours a day, so
Yeah.
I'd get off set and I'd eat my dinner in the bathtub while watching A Man for All Seasons, and then I'd just go to bed. Like that was I would have to just cram it all in at once,
Yeah.
and that was the best I could do. And for some
That,
reason, it was just a comfortable movie.
yeah.
It's just nice to sit and watch it, feel a little encouraged.
Right. Yeah. Anthony Abate says Bug went from childhood star to homestead hobo voluntarily. Anthony.
Yeah. Well, that was a big change for me. That was a scary decision. I mean,
Mm,
I had been working in the industry for 30 years, and I had a big company at the time. We had just sold a show to Netflix that I was writing and producing, and I just wanted to do something different for my family. I wanted to raise them in a way uh, where they got the best shake in life.
Bug, I would shake your hand right now if I was next to you, man. That's very, and I can't tell you how wonderful that is to hear. And I don't care what anybody in Hollywood does. You have the coolest beard, and anybody that's in the game right now. So forget this. um, so moving back, do you have a favorite actor of all time?
That's tough. That's
Sure,
tough. For most of my career, I probably would have said maybe Daniel Day-Lewis.
that's mine
Um,
too.
no, is it really?
That's my favorite actor of all time.
All
Whoa!
right, all right. Yeah, that was he was like the guy you aspire to be like. Like
Yeah,
you watch him and you just go. The problem is the whole method thing is it's real damaging, and I don't know. I can't really recommend him anymore. I like lighthearted guys now. I always loved Paul Newman.
yeah. Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Paul Newman was one of my favorites. But I like guys that don't take the work very seriously anymore. Guys that realize they're just playing pretend for a living and getting paid way too much.
Right. Yeah. I think DiCaprio is a great actor, and he
Yeah,
always does a great job. I think, and it's very hard to outact him, in my personal opinion. And when he's on screen, he kind of take a lot of time takes over.
yeah.
But um, Gangs in New York, Daniel Day Lewis did better than DiCaprio. In my
Oh yeah.
personal opinion, yeah,
Oh, I mean, he
flawless.
steals every shot. He steals every scene. You can't stand next to that man and and outdo him. You just can't.
Wonderful. Yeah. Let's move on with I guess we call it love. More eros. Where did you meet your wife, or how did you meet your wife, current wife?
I met my wife. So a friend of mine was having a birthday party in LA,
Yeah.
and for his birthday party, he wanted this like we had another friend that would do these philosophy conferences. They called them Going Deeper, and it was just these sort of random conferences. And so that was this guy's birthday party. It was a conference, a philosophy conference, and
Mm,
these two girls show up who I had never seen before. Nobody really knew who they were,
yeah.
and they were like a friend of a friend. And so I asked my buddy whose house we were at. I said, "Hey, who's the girl with the hat?" And he said, "I don't know. She came with so and so." And I said, "Well, I'm going to marry her." And that was it.
Just
And
like
I
that.
did, just like that. Yep. I had decided. She raised her hand and asked a question, and I knew I was going to marry her. I was 100% sure, and that was it. I figured out. I stalked her for about a week,
There you go.
and we started hanging out and we started courting. I flew out to Ohio to meet her dad to ask his permission to court her,
Good man.
and and then and that was it. And then she wanted to be a nun for a while, She was like, I think I might be called to the religious life. I was like, okay. So I dropped her off at a convent out in the desert.
This is incredible.
Yeah, and she discerned for about 9 months, and we didn't speak for that 9 months because I didn't want to precipitate her, her
Sure,
decision.
sure.
So 9 months later, I get a call from her. I was out in Vermont working on a project, and she called me and she said, "Hey, I decided I'm called to the married life." And I said, "Okay, I'll see you tomorrow." I left right then. I was like, "Guys, I got to go." And I got on a plane, the last plane out that night, and flew back to LA.
So I asked this question to every single guest. This was by far my favorite story of how someone met his wife and got married. Just this, the whole part of it is like, she asked the question, I knew I was going to marry her. And then she leaves for the convent.
The best part was, so she's very, at the time, very modern girl. And I was like, well, I need to go to Ohio.
Yeah.
I had only known her for like a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And she was like, I'm going home for a friend's wedding. And I said, can I go with you? And she was like, what? And I was like, it's kind of weird. I was like, but I got to go ask your dad's permission if I can court you. And she had no idea what courtship was. She was like, what? What's courtship? And I was like, well, it's a discernment of marriage. And so she's looking at me like, eyes bugging out this big, like, what? So, yeah, trying to explain that and trying to explain courtship to her dad,
Yeah.
It was an interesting one.
Hey, you went to the father, you went to the patriarch. That's good on
That's
you.
right.
You knew that to do that. That's
Right.
awesome. And so do you mind telling us the proposal story? Like how it all came
Yeah.
about? Yeah, please.
Yeah, well, so first of all, me and my wife were very close.
Sure.
She's my best friend in the world, and I I had just seen a buddy of mine, and I was asking for his counsel on proposal. And so I had talked to him, and I was all excited. He kind of gave me some advice, and I said, "This is good," And so then me and her went to mass that night, and we're standing in the parking lot talking, and I'm like, it's like I'm talking to a buddy of mine. You know what I mean? And she was like, "Hey, you went and saw so and so today?" I said, "Yeah, it was really great." I told him I was going to propose to you, and then she goes, "What?" And then I realized what I said, and I didn't know how to fix the problem because I had this huge proposal like planned, So I didn't know how to fix the problem. So I literally just turned around and got in my car and just drove off. I didn't say another word. I was like, I just drove off. And so I called her the next day and I said, "Hey, I got a motorcycle and I want to take you on your first motorcycle ride up to Santa Barbara." Now, obviously, she knows now that this is the trip where I'm going to propose to her.
Slipped, yeah.
So I thought about it. I'm a storyteller, so I was like, okay, now that the cat's out of the bag, how can I make the anticipation still exist, right?
Yeah.
So what I did was throughout the whole day, I dragged the day out so long. Like we just did like 20 things throughout the day. And every time we'd stop, I'd find some reason to bend down onto one knee, like I was tying my shoe. And all day, and she'd be like, "Ooh." And then I'd kind of get up and move on. We were eating sushi. I'd drop the chopstick and I'd get down on one knee, and she's like, "Ooh." So I just let that play out all day until she was just exhausted from anticipation. And the last thing was we went and did the Stations of the Cross at the Santa Barbara Mission. And I had timed it out where sunset, I knew that sunset was right around 6 p.m. Angelus. And so the Angelus bells went off, and I said, "Oh, hey, how cool would it be if we went and did the Angelus on the front steps of the mission out here?" And so she goes, "Oh, okay." Now from Santa Barbara Mission, you can see the whole coastline. You can see, all the way down to the beach. The sun sets over the ocean, and you can see the whole city. It's one of the most magnificent views. And so then, right at the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, I, did the genuflection, and then I didn't get back up. And she realized, I pulled the ring out and we did the proposal there. And then we finished the Angelus after the proposal.
That's it. That's the one, man. Yeah. So yours and Marshall's are like those epic stories, the proposal stories. Those are great. That's an epic story, Bug. Wow, that's hilarious. So it slipped, and then you had to make it up. You just dragged it throughout the day.
I was like, you know what? I got to keep the anticipation going now.
You did, yeah. You did that. You did good. You did good. I'm going to pause. We're going to do a quick this or that, if you don't mind.
Okay.
and then
All right, let's do it.
we'll move on
I
to
got to lean
family.
into
So
this.
yeah, so you just gotta just answer as fast as you can. Uh, this or that, vacation or staycation.
Staycation.
All right, Netflix or Hulu.
Hulu.
Okay, night or morning person.
Morning.
Morning. Rich and famous or rich and unknown. What would you rather be?
Poor and unknown.
That's a good answer. Passenger or driver?
What is it?
Passenger or driver?
Oh, driver. Driver. I got to
Driver.
drive.
Car or bike?
Bike.
Okay.
Motorcycle. You mean
Yeah.
motorcycle?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bike.
Yeah. Let's see. Train or airplane?
Train.
Train. Is that right? Okay. Would you rather owe money or a favor?
Favor.
Okay. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
All right. Would you rather be embarrassed or be afraid?
Embarrassed.
Okay. City or countryside?
Countryside.
Wine or beer?
Beer.
Okay. Uh, cooking or being cooked for?
Being cooked for.
Would you rather go to a play or a stand-up show?
Oh, that's a good one. Let's say a stand-up show.
Okay. Roommates or live alone, if you had
Live
the choice.
alone.
Okay. Would you rather attend a party or host a party?
Oh, attend a party.
Attend the party. Would you rather lose sleep or skip a meal?
Skip a meal.
Okay. Would you rather have sneakers or dress shoes?
Dress shoes.
Fiction or nonfiction?
Nonfiction.
Let's see. Coffee or iced coffee? Hot coffee or iced coffee?
Coffee. Hot coffee.
Hot coffee. Reality shows or documentaries?
Documentary.
Okay. Waffles or pancakes?
Pancakes.
All right. Red wine or white wine?
Red wine.
Okay. Salad or sandwich?
Sandwich.
Okay. Wonderful. Hey, thanks for playing
Big
that.
meat. A meaty sandwich. Yep.
All right. There's a lot of meat in it, right? That's what you're saying. Absolutely.
That's it.
So continuing on with the story of your family, you're thanks for answering those questions. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You're married with your wife. You propose. You get married, and you have how many children do you have now? You want children?
I've got 4 daughters.
4 daughters. Wonderful. You told me their names. You don't have to say it, but you told me the names in the green screen, and I'll tell you, it's one of the most Catholic girl names I've ever heard, and it's just beautiful. All together, all named after Our Lady, right?
That's right. They're all named for the title of Our Lady. Yeah, their names are online as it is, so I can tell you. So it's Josephina Joy Marie.
Okay.
She's named for Saint Joseph, and she's named for Our Lady of Joy, which is a French title. We've got Therese Rose Marie, so she's named for Saint Therese, and then Our Lady of the Rosary.
Wow.
We've got Bernadette Lourdes Marie. That one's pretty obvious.
Wow.
And then we've got Veronica Dolores Marie for Our Lady of Sorrows and Saint Veronica.
No, this is Saint Veronica, the one with the cloth, or Saint Veronica Giuliani. Which Veronica were you?
Saint Veronica, the Holy
Face. Wonderful. Yeah. That's beautiful. We have a question from the audience. Somebody asked, "Does Bug have any beer tips? Like, how do you eat a burger with a glorious mustache?"
You'll notice I'm always doing this, and it's because I've learned that, like, I don't care what my beard looks like. I don't do anything to it. I don't put junk in it to make it look pretty. Yeah. It just grows. But when I'm eating, I got to get it out of the way first before I even start. Otherwise, you're eating like mustache, while you're going. So it's just part of it. But then it just naturally takes on this curve because I'm always moving it out of the way.
Wow.
And then just recently, I've realized there is a too long length. There is a too long length when I'm working out in the field and I'm catching my beard in my fence post driver or in my drill gun or something like that, which has happened past, like right here, right there, when it's like getting caught in my tools and caught in my work, and it's not fun.
Wow. Yeah. I hear you. I forgot to ask you one, cigar or pipe for the answers.
Pipe
over cigar. Okay. Wonderful. Let me ask you this. It's kind of a deeper question. You have 4 daughters. I know daughters really change a man in such a way.
Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest takeaway before you had your daughters and after as a man that really changed you and started to chip away from those vices?
I would say gentleness.
Mm,
Um, you find a gentleness that, I'm by nature, I'm a disagreeable person. By nature, I'm a very direct person. Um, People that have anxieties and things like that have I kind of rub them the wrong way because I just speak very directly. I say the shortest amount of words possible to say precisely what I mean. Right?
I
That's just how
love
I
it. I love it.
thought. And girls have opened up a gentleness that I just didn't think was possible.
Mm,
Um, and I'm still a very very direct person, but
sure.
I'm more aware of people's interior emotional lives than I think I ever was. Also, running a development company in Hollywood with a bunch of hiring writers and stuff who are just sensitive by nature. I think prepared me for having girls. Grown men who are writers
Yeah.
prepared me for having girls.
I love it. I love it. And let's move on to faith, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
With family. When, so were you always Catholic growing up, or was there a
no,
moment where okay, so because you said you
I
and your wife, she was a convent, she came back, and
yeah yeah. So my wife's a revert. She kind of grew up very nominally Catholic.
mhm.
And
Wow,
then when I met her, she was going to some Protestant place, and I was like, "You got to start going to mass again. You got to go to confession." And
mm,
and then the priest that converted me was doing some conferences on spiritual warfare, and I made her go to those like 5 days into her reversion, and that like sealed the deal. She was like, "Okay, I'm never, I'm Catholic again for good."
oh
I had
man,
converted about 10 years ago now. About I think this Easter will be my 11th.
okay, okay, so 11th year. What was there like a certain point where like you knew I have to convert? This is the faith that for me,
Well,
or
I always joke with people. I went from zero to Catholic in literally one night.
is that right?
Literally one night. Yeah, my business partner, my writing partner and business partner had been going through a conversion for a while. I wasn't really interested. He was trying to get me to go to these like conferences and stuff, and I was just ignoring it. I was like, this isn't. It just doesn't appeal to me. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I was also intellectually very prideful, so I already
Mm,
thought I knew everything that there was to know. I
mm,
figured I already know kind of the history of religions and stuff, and of course, 100% wrong. But
sure.
so one day he tricked me. I mean, he tricked me. He said we're going to a psychology conference, and it was a conference by a priest who's an exorcist and a psychologist.
He wasn't
And
lying.
huh?
He wasn't lying.
Yeah, he wasn't lying. He just, So I get there, and I was so mad. I was like, oh man. So I'm sitting there with my arms crossed, and it's a private conference, at a friend's house.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there with my arms crossed, and this priest is going through the seven deadly sins, right? And so he's talking about the effects of the seven deadly sins on human psychology, and I thought it was personal. Thomism is so precise.
Mm.
It's so accurate to human nature, and I actually thought it was a setup. It was so precise that I thought it was actually about me, and that my friend had like set me up and talked to this priest and told him
Oh.
everything about me. And I literally I had, I was an angry guy most of my life. So I'm like, I'm going to confront this guy. And so there's a little intermission, and the priest is out on the balcony smoking a cigar, and I confronted him. And the funny thing is he like doesn't even really remember this. I was like, I was trying to I wanted to make myself feel better.
Yeah.
So I was trying to come up with all these stupid atheist one-liners,
Yeah.
and grilling him on. And he didn't care at all. He was just answering my questions like annoyed, like, "What do you do?" I'm trying to smoke my cigar. Like, get out of here, right? And he's like waving me off. And it just hit me that he had no idea who I was, which means it couldn't have been a setup.
Right.
And then I look in the house, and everyone's laughing and eating hors d'oeuvres, and um, it wasn't about me. And I realized at that moment that I was angry because it was so true. Uh, and,
Mm.
and that was it. It was an actual grace. And thanks be to God, I accepted that actual grace. And I asked, well, so how does someone become Catholic? And I didn't want to go through RCIA.
Smart man.
Yeah, well, I was like, I want this now. I want to do it now. Easter was coming up in like a month and a half.
Mm.
So I talked to an abbey in Southern California, and they said, well, we don't have to follow the rules that everyone else follows. If you want to get baptized this Easter,
Yeah.
come out here every day for the next month and a half. We'll catechize you. They're like, but if you miss a day, we're not going to take you seriously. So I was out there. It was like 2 hours from where I lived. I was out there every day. And there's a bunch of priests out there, and every day someone would take the time to catechize me for an hour or two.
Wow.
And the Father Abbot, a couple days before Easter, just grilled me. And it was like, it's my final decision. So if you don't pass my test, you're out of here. And after our conversation, we talked for like 4 hours. After my conversation, he was like, I'll baptize you. I was like, great. So,
And you weren't even baptized at the time, were you?
so, so my phone's about to die, so I'm just plugging, and we're gonna shift.
No worries,
over
but yeah,
here.
do what you got to do. Absolutely, absolutely. Anybody have
Yeah, no, I
any questions
haven't been
for Bug? Just
baptized.
type them in, fellas. Yeah.
So it was yeah, baptism, first communion, confirmation, all in one night. My buddy, who had been going through his conversion, it was really funny because he had been going through RCIA, and he was a revert, so he wasn't getting baptized; he was just getting confirmed. And I was joking with him. I was like, "Man, you were at this for like a year and a half, and I beat you by a month."
Yeah. Oh man! All thanks to the cigar smoking priest and the abbot at the abbey.
Yeah.
What a great grace of God! And hey, you stuck with it, and you've made it pretty much. This is the most concrete thing of your life, right? It is your life,
Yeah,
right?
I'm Catholic only. I did the dance for a while of trying to figure out how to reconcile my work with the faith, and kudos to everyone that can do that. I'm not a very smart man, and I just I didn't see a way to do an absolute version of it. A version that was like all or none. And I wanted something different. I wanted to put myself in an environment where I could really be Catholic only. Our Lord could be the center of my heart with a wide berth, right? With no other attachments, nothing else kind of tugging. All the trappings of the world, they're everywhere, obviously. So they're not just in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, you can't really run away from that stuff because wherever you go, you're going to, the world, the flesh, and the devil exists no matter where you go.
Sure.
But I like where we are now. I've spent the last few days putting up stations of the cross around the
I've seen that.
property, and
Good for you.
and we just the faith just precipitates every last aspect of our life now, and it's tranquil.
Glory to God. I love to hear that. We have a question from the viewers. Did you go straight into tradition, or did you have a period of mainstream Novus Ordo? Is what someone asked.
No, I came right into tradition. The abbey that I was baptized at, they actually publicly they do the Novus Ordo, but completely in Latin. They chant it 100% in Latin.
Sure.
But that wasn't really my frequent mass, even early in my conversion. It was the Latin Mass in Alhambra, and then eventually the FSSP made their way out there, and I went and spent some time in the desert. Right after my conversion, I got out of Hollywood for about 4 to 6 months, somewhere around there. And there was a Latin Mass out there, kind of nearby, so I was going there.
Wonderful. We have another question here. It says, someone says, Kyle says, being in the public eye more than most people, how do you differentiate petty criticism from something that you should take seriously?
Uh, the only time it's something you should take seriously is if it's coming from someone who genuinely loves you. I mean, it's that
Mm,
simple. I don't. Everything else is noise. I don't care what anyone. Yeah, I don't care what anyone says. Everything is noise unless it's someone that knows me and loves me.
sure. That's a great way to look at it. We got Robert Brown. Robbie says, "Hey, Bug, it's your boy Robbie. Love you, man."
Robbie, Robbie and his family came out and visited us on the farm, and it was an amazing couple days. We just sat around the table and talked, and we walked
Yeah,
around the farm.
yeah,
I love you guys. Please give my love to your family. I miss you guys.
yeah. Robbie's a good man. I just interviewed him last week. So we did the same setup, and it was a
Nice,
pleasure hanging out with him. He's a really good guy. So Robbie, how you doing, bud?
man.
Thanks for
What a
hopping
beautiful
on.
family. My daughters. It's so important to surround your kids with older kids that they can look up to.
Sure.
And his daughters made such a positive impression on my children. Thank you
Wonderful.
for
Wonderful. Yeah, no, it's good to have Catholics get together like that in real person and just hang out. I got a lot of people on Twitter I would love to meet one day in person. So that, it's is it list. One of these days I'll just hop in the car and just knock on people's doors. Um, now, sticking with faith, you don't mind me asking, uh, I'm going to ask you like three questions that are kind of lighthearted, but they're kind of serious. The first question is the treasure island. If you were stuck in it and you could pick three Catholic books to take with you to read forever, what would they be?
This is a tough question. This is
Yeah.
a tough question for two reasons. Picking those three books is nearly impossible. But then secondly, there's a lot of books that I would pick, except that if I said it, I'd sound pretentious. Um, well, the Summa, obviously. Um, the Summa was actually the very first Catholic book, actually the second Catholic book I ever bought. I love St. Thomas's commentary on the Gospels. Um, I love sitting with the Gospels out next to St. Thomas's commentary on them. So now when we're talking about scripture, does that count as one book, or do I
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
like?
One
Okay,
book.
all right. So the Bible, St. Thomas's commentary on the Gospels, and then Imitation of Christ.
There you go. You got your spiritual, you got the scriptures, of course, and then of course you got your Thomistic. St. Thomas is one of the greatest ever, so you got to have him on there. I always joke around when somebody asks this question. I say, "I'll take 1 million building bridges because I need firewood."
That's great. That's great.
Second
So
question
just
is,
just scoop up all of the copies of Rediscovering Catholicism, and
oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, just put them all into the fire. That'd be great. That'll keep me going for a while. Now, let me ask you this question. I like to ask this question according to people's profession or what they like to do. If you could pick one saint in the past that you could be the main actor for their movie, who would you pick?
if I
Like
could
that
pick
you,
one, what?
if you could pick one saint that you can play as the main actor for their life movie.
Uh, Saint Moses the Black.
Nice. Yeah. He was
Hey,
a man's man, right?
I mean, he's my confirmation saint, and I don't care what the public says about it. I'd play him. I'd play him in a heartbeat.
That's wonderful. We
Um,
we need a movie. We can do one. I'd
yeah.
love to.
Now, if you're looking for something that maybe suits my appearance a little more accurately, I'd love to see a really good movie about Saint Patrick.
Mm,
Um, I think that would be phenomenal. The real story of Saint Patrick. Who else? Yeah, I guess that's it. I guess that's it.
okay. Do you have a favorite saint of all time?
You know how that goes. It just kind of shifts and changes.
Sure.
Saint Anthony. I mean, I've had a very strong devotion to Saint Anthony from really, really early on. We've got a first class relic of Saint Anthony in our home, and we keep a constant devotion to him. So he
Wonderful.
probably makes the top of the list. Lately, though, Saint Dismas.
Saint
My
Dismas. Okay.
meditations at the foot of the cross keep bringing me back
Sure.
to Saint Dismas.
Beautiful saint. Yeah. Final question, and this is always my final question for everybody. It's 2024. Holy Father has passed. We have white smoke, and they have declared, Rome has declared, that Bug Hall is now the new pontiff. They declared you pope. If you choose to accept this mission, number one, what papal name are you picking? What's your pontificate name? And number two, what are some of the things that you would do to kind of bring the church back to its great glory?
You know, I think I'd be a Pope Leo.
Okay. The
I think
14th.
yeah, and I would probably focus on economics. I mean, look, we can go into the rot of heresy and all that. That's definitely, all that's got to get solved. But
Sure.
I think the elephant in the room is the economic disaster that we're in. I think I really do think that's the root of pretty much all the social problems of the world. So I would solve that.
That's an excellent point. Wow. That's a new one. I haven't heard that one before. A lot of folks will focus on the liturgies and the curia and stuff like that, but not so
Yeah,
much on the,
at the end of the day, I mean, look, as goes the church, so goes the world, right? So you got to solve all that stuff, right?
Sure.
You got to get people back in the habit of mental prayer, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that's kind of been stripped away, and there's a lot of graces not flowing. But the social problems of the world are pretty much. I mean, look, you can go through the whole thing. Sins of the flesh. A lot of the sins of the flesh that are very, very big ones. I don't know what you care to say, on here. A
Sure,
lot of
yeah.
that is driven economically, from
Yeah.
contraception all the way up the line. So I think you can solve a lot of that. I really do. I think you can solve a lot of that by getting back to some kind of a Catholic economic system that's neither this side or that side.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's why Catholics aren't having that discussion, is because at the end of the day, we're stuck in this dichotomy between two systems that are one is intrinsically evil, one is fatally flawed. Let's say at the very best.
Yeah.
And we got a long way to go to solve that problem.
A lot of folks would, say one of the major issues that we had is, the mothers leaving the home to go to work. But I think you can go a little bit deeper. You could say it's also the fathers that left the home. That is a huge
I make that joke all the time.
Yeah.
I make that joke all the time. Traditionalists like myself, they're often pushing the truth that women belong in the home.
Yeah.
And it's also a hot button thing to say. It's fun to say women belong in the home and then watch
them fall
out.
It's fun. Oh yeah, it's a fun thing to say.
But I'm a contrarian, so I also like to say, when people say that, I like to say, well, so do fathers, so do men. Men belong in the home. We've got to learn how to use land properly again. Instead of billions of acres of lawns, we need localized food production, and men need to be that needs to be the majority of what men are doing. And if you've got a shop, it should be at the home. Your boys should be starting that work at 6 years old with you. And that's it. People say, well, that's going backwards. It doesn't have to. There is a version of the future that could look like that and still hold a lot of what we have taken for granted as what the future should look like, with technology or whatever. So, but I don't know what the bridge is to that world, and I don't know how to get there. I'm not a smart man, but I would bring some smart men in, and I would have that discussion.
That is an excellent discussion, and that would solve all the economic issues as well. I think those two should go hand in hand. I think you're absolutely right. So I don't have to ask you what your first encyclical is going to be, because you already said that.
It would definitely be one on economics, some kind of third way economics for sure.
Sure.
And I would finally put the put the question of rerum novarum to rest, right? All the constant, is it communism? Is it this? Is it that? Is it this? I'd be like, let's bring the best minds in. Let's just solve this and tell everyone else to shut up. No more commentary on it. Here's what it means, and that's that.
Clarity, right? Be precise.
That's right.
Be clear. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we need. Yeah,
That's the nature of teaching, man. Clarity.
I appreciate you saying that, because that's very important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one last thing, if you don't mind, just as a man, as a father, as a husband, just for anybody who's listening, any young man out there that wants to start a farm, or just wants to get married or court, his girlfriend or whatever it may be, what is some main advice from your own experience that they could take that can help them through the journey?
Well, so my family motto is rigid as the wood of the cross. And I think that detachment is the most forgotten aspect of the faith. I think young men and all men need to go back to that good old system where we're always rooting out goods, right? Like, the reality is we're so entrenched in this, like, how do I get out of sin kind of mindset today.
Yeah.
Like, you should be doing that. That goes without saying, but goods, you've got to be detached from all goods as well, because you can make decisions easier. You can, all of a sudden, anxiety plummets when you're detached from things. You're not being pulled in all directions. And the modern mindset on that, I hear it all the time. Like, well, you don't have to give up video games, or you don't have to give up that, or you don't have to give up that. Those are goods. It's just a matter of moderation. I say rip it all the way first, and then if you want to go back to it, once you've detached, go for it, right? But detach first,
because then you have virtue over it.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right.
And it's got to be all of it. It really does have to be all or none. Right. Detach from it all, and then whatever you feel good about going back to, go for it.
Wow, that's very Saint Anthony of you.
That's right.
I love it. But hey, I've had a blast here, just listening to you tell your stories, and I really appreciate it. Hopefully, I know you've done so many interviews. Hopefully, I did some justice.
Oh, this was fun. This actually might be one of my favorite ones so far.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I love listening to everything that you're saying, and I learned a lot from you just sitting over here, and I can go back, be a better father and husband. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And everybody, show him some love. Follow him on Twitter and all that stuff. He's the man. And thank you again for coming on.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Adios.